aquel que piensa que la vida es desigual tiene que saber que no es así, que la vida es una hermosura y hay que vivirle a todo aquel que piensa que está solo y que está mal. Tiene que saber que no es así, que en la vida no hay nadie solo, que siempre hay alguien. No hay que llorar y es más bello vivir cantando. Se van cantando, no hay que llorar, es más bello vivir cantando, no hay que llorar, y las penas se van cantando. Todo aquel que piense que la vida siempre es cruel tiene que saber que no es así, que tan solo hay momentos malos y todo pasa. Todo aquel que piensa que esto nunca va a cambiar tiene que saber que no es así, que mal tiempo muera cara y todo cambia. No hay que llorar y es más bello vivir cantando. Se van cantando, no hay que llorar, y es más bello vivir cantando, no hay que llorar, que la vida es un carnaval y las penas se van cantando. Es para reír, para gozar, para disfrutar. La vida es un carnaval, todo vamos a cantar. Ay, señores, todo aquel que piense que la vida es cruel nunca estará solo, Dios está con él. Es para reír, para gozar, para disfrutar. Hey, yeah. La vida es un carnaval, todo vamos a cantar. Ay, señores.
Welcome and thank you for joining us. A special thank you to one of our JPNDC staff members, Ivan, for opening us up with that beautiful song tonight. I am Julia Mejia, City Councilor at Large, and I'm very excited to be here with you all tonight for this special event to honor Richard and to look at the future of JPNDC.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Richard Thal, the outgoing director of JPNDC, and we're delighted that you've joined us this evening. And if you wonder where we are, we were wondering that ourselves. We're coming to you live from the beautiful Barbara Kaplan room in Building B of the brewery. You're going to be hearing a lot more as we go along about the effort to build the Center for Equity and Prosperity in the Capital Campaign. But we have made amazing progress that frankly just blows me away. It's way more than, we're much further along than I would have ever thought. Because in the last 2 months, we have raised almost 700,000 new dollars. We're up well over 900,000. And I thought if we did a quarter of the way through the campaign, we'd be doing well. We're well over a third of the way there. And it's due to the generosity of so many of you. And I especially want to call out these people who've been very generous, the Prosperity Grand Champions, who are the Boston Beer Company and Peabody Properties, the Prosperity Leaders, who are NEI General Contractors, Boston Children's Hospital, and J&M Brown Company, and the Prosperity Builders, who are Kevin P. Martin and Associates, Klein Hornig, and Mary and Richard Scott. We want to thank all of you, and especially these amazing partners, for your faith in JPNDC.
Yes. Okay. So we are super excited to have over 150 guests tuning in. Imagine that, 150 people tuning in so far. Before we get started, I have an important message for anyone who wants to listen en español. That's right. Tenemos traducción en español, pero lo que necesitamos es que miren en su botón donde dice accesa translación y elige lenguaje de interpretación y escoja español. Richard, do you want to kick us off for tonight?
Well, yeah, we wanted to start, if I take this off, wanted to start with a little light touch and do a couple of polls. So the first one has to do with this being a Friday evening, and we will give you all special merit for showing up, but there's questions that will come up on the screen about what are your feelings in Friday evening, and what are you thinking about, and what are you worried about. And I have to say, I was surprised there wasn't one of the questions on there that says, how glad are you to finally get rid of this guy? But it seems like it's a mixture of questions. So how was your Friday, Julia? Because I know you're just so busy doing so many things.
This is like my 5th event today, but I wouldn't have it any other way. But it's raining, so it's one of those foggy Fridays for me. But I'm happy to be here.
Great. And so the other thing that we wanted to check in about, because there's such a variety of people here, is the second question has to do with how long you've been connected with JPNDC. And we can't, I think the poll results are coming up somewhere. From our vantage point, we can't see them, but I imagine it's quite a variety of people, some of whom have known us since our infancy over 40 years ago, and some of us who are just starting to work with us probably in the last week or two.
So if you had to take a guess, Richard, would you say like since the beginning? How many were since the beginning? How many were 20 years? Like what's your, without knowing what,
without knowing what's,
tell us what you think.
I bet you it's probably 5 to 10 or 15 years is the biggest category. I'm not even sure exactly what the breakouts are, but I'd say it's somewhere in there.
We're gonna have to find out. So telling us more.
All right.
Oh, so I love seeing that we have, okay, this is Richard. Okay, so now I want to take a moment to reflect on one of the main reasons why we have gathered here tonight. As many of you know, Richard Tai has served as the executive director of JPNDC for more than 26 years. Wow. During his tenure, he has led JPNDC expansion from a neighborhood organization to a citywide force that transforms the lives of those who have been excluded from the inequitable economic system. JPNDC would not be who they are today without Richard's leadership. Check you out, Richard. Richard, thank you for your determination, your compassion, your vision, your passion throughout your time leading JPNDC. You have truly made an impact on so many individuals, families, businesses, residents of this community, and throughout the greater Boston. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And as a small way to show how much of an impact Richard has made, here is a video, just a handful of people that have been close to Richard and the JPNDC over the years. Let's watch it together.
so thrilled to join you on this unique and momentous occasion. When we celebrated Richard's 20th anniversary at JPNDC, I shared that he's been one of the most consistent people in my life since I had the pleasure of meeting him more than 20 years ago as a JP resident and new board member, and that he's been one of the most consistent and generous people in my life. So since you forced me to pick just one word, because y'all know I have many, I had to choose devotion. Richard's devotion to the incredible human beings that comprise the diverse community that we know as Jamaica Plain, his devotion to his wonderful life partner Carolyn and their gorgeous kids and now grandchild. Thank you all so much for sharing with him with us for these many years. His devotion to great music and art and baseball, especially the history of the Negro Leagues. His devotion to my personal journey, both professionally and in my life. I think to this day, he remembers the birthdays of each one of my children. So yeah, devotion to the good work and the good people. Richard, thank you so much for everything you've given Lo these many years. So paisan, I wish you nothing but love and light and Godspeed as you take the next important steps in your life journey. And I have no doubt that the devotion that you have showed will pay off for you in spades. Mwah.
It's an honor to be part of this celebration for our friend Richard Thal. We've worked with Richard for over 25 years and been a friend and a partner to the Jamaica Plain Neighborhood Development Corporation since the early 80s. 36 years we've worked with all of you. And Richard has been instrumental in creating and developing this vibrant community that we're all thrilled to be a part of, and this neighborhood that is so important to all of us. So unfortunately, we can't all be together in person, but all of us at Sam Adams and Boston Beer Company are raising our Boston lagers to Richard. Cheers to a wonderful, long, great career of helping the community and others. And we wish you the best on your new adventures. Richard, God bless you. Cheers.
The word I chose to describe Richard's contribution to JPNDC is dedication. Richard was dedicated to our mission, which is to build affordable housing, small business development, and community organizing. And he's done these jobs with extreme dedication. It's really unfortunate that we weren't able to gather in person to send him off to his retirement. In any case, good luck, Richard.
I'm not going to spend too much time talking about Richard's success as an executive. Everyone knows about his accomplishments, pushing the NDC forward, and recruiting and keeping excellent staff to do the day-to-day work. No, I want to talk about the kind of guy he is. I was on the hiring committee when we hired Richard 26 years ago. He and I sat down to finalize the deal, and I said, I hope you can figure out a way to do this job and keep your home and family life sane, because I couldn't. Well, I haven't done firsthand checking with Carolyn, Rebecca, and Daniel, but I think that by and large he seems to have managed to accomplish that. At least he's agreed to me that he has. So I take my hat off to him for that. Now, there are days with Richard. The calls I would get, Gons, you've now been alive 800 months, or it's been 10,000 days since Mickey Mantle died. Where does he get this stuff from? I always wanted to ask him, but honestly, I was afraid of the answer. I don't know whether Shabbos Goy is one word or two, Richard, but I'll go with Minch. You're a good man. Best wishes to you.
Eloquent. That would be my word for you, Richard. In the 26 years since we first met, you have become a wonderful voice for the JPNDC. Not only could you articulate the mission of the organization, but when called upon to do a ribbon cutting or testify in favor of a project, your words were powerful voice to the needs of the community. But most importantly in my mind were the words that you spoke when we hired a new staff person or when someone left the organization. Those words were never perfunctory, but always personal and heartfelt. And it's my hope that we can be as eloquent in the next couple of weeks in our send-off as you have been all these years.
And one word that I have been thinking about this is learning, aprender. I really enjoy your time when you were asking questions, always checking and willing to learn more about different things, about culture, about history, and about the Spanish traditions and the language, of course. I wish you all the best, and I hope everything is going fine with your retirement and your time with your family. Abrazos desde acá.
The main word I would associate with Richard Thal is quotable. I've worked in local journalism for the JP Gazette for as long as Richard Thal has been director of JPNDC. And every time that I knew that Richard was going to be part of an upcoming article or the JPNDC, I was happy because I knew that what Richard said would not only be very knowledgeable, but also very passionate. And he would express things in such an articulate way that would be really useful for the article. So I'd like to thank Richard for making all the articles he was in both interesting and articulate. Thank you, Richard.
One word to describe Richard Thal would be passionate. He's passionate about building equitable communities, about creating jobs for everyone and supporting local businesses and building power within residents in the community. Richard's also passionate about baseball and his family. And we thank Richard for all the work he has done in Jamaica Plain, Boston, and all throughout the state. Thanks, Richard.
The long-term impression or word is that he's directed. And what I mean by this is that Richard's, worked hard and sweated all the details with development and business supports and organizing, but he really did it for all the right reasons. And you could see that when he was talking to the residents of JP or talking to the residents of a particular apartment building or celebrating, good news. He was just joyful about what the outcomes were going to do for the people of JP. So I just want to state that he did the work for all the right reasons.
One word to describe Richard Thal: organizer. Not personal organizer, as anyone who's ever been in his office can tell you, but community organizer. Someone who took the lessons learned as a young man organizing on the North Shore and applied them repeatedly throughout his career at JPNDC. There's a lot of CDC directors who love to talk about their past glories as organizers, but Richard was one ED who was really committed to making sure that residents had a strong voice throughout everything JPNDC was doing. We admired the way that he and the board took a stand against the city when they tried to have the Seaport District linkage funds go only to one neighborhood, including joining a lawsuit to successfully make sure that those funds went to neighborhoods across Boston, even though it put him in the doghouse for a little while in terms of real estate projects. Richard also never missed an opportunity to make people feel like part of the JPNDC community. His emails and kind words to staff and board during transition periods are legendary. He always made you feel like part of the family. I think the key to Richard's success at JPNDC is the fact that he knew in his bones that the mission of CDCs is not to build buildings, but it's to build community and to build power so that residents are taking the lead in finding solutions to the problems facing our neighborhood. Jefe, congratulations and best of luck.
Richard, Thank you so much for your effort and dedication in leading the Jamaica Plain Neighborhood Development Corporation in the process of transforming the business community, people's life, the whole neighborhood in Jamaica Plain area. When I think of a word that would actually define you, I would say tenacity, but a very calm tenacity, that one that have contributed to make all these transformations, great transformation through the years. For all that, my dear friend, thank you. Muchas gracias, hermano.
Hello, I'm Richard's sister, and I asked to make this video in order to say how incredibly proud our father would have been of what Richard has done with his life. He was a refugee from Nazi Germany, and he really believed in giving back. He devoted a lot of his time and quite a lot of his money to various causes. He was also a ferociously hard worker, which is something my brother seems to have inherited from him. He died when Richard was still in college, so he never knew the work that he'd go on to do. But if he could have known, I don't think he would have been surprised, knowing Richard as he did, but it would have made him very, very happy. Thank you.
I just want to say a few words about my Richard. I've been knowing Richard for 20 years. I've done a lot of work with my Richard. His mother was the best. She became my buddy. We spoke many times together. And Richard is the type of person that reached out to the community. And once I saw that, I had to work with Richard. NDC is known for that anyway, that they work with the community and they reach out and listen to what the community wants and what they say they need, they get it. So Richard, I just want to say to you today how much I love you, you know that, and how much I'm going to miss you around, miss you visiting me, get me on the spot. I need you to walk around the building with about 15, 20 people. I'm going to miss all that. Hoping you the best. May you have the good life that you deserve, and may the good Lord bless you always.
Wow. It takes a lot to leave me speechless, but boy, that is such a tribute. It means so much to me, and thank you so much to all of you who were part of that. I was glad there were at least some irreverent parts, because it wouldn't be true to its subject if it were too serious. But you know, a very dear friend of mine who I was in touch with a couple of weeks ago wrote back to me and another of our dear friends who was also retiring this year. And this is what Bill Traynor wrote to us. He said, I hope that you can fully take in the river of love and appreciation coming your way. And it really has just been so moving, and I can't thank you guys enough. You know, the work that JPNDC and our sister organizations have been engaged in for decades, it can be deeply rewarding, but I always say it is not for the faint of heart, because there are more than a fair share of frustrations and obstacles along the way. And it's especially so if you're a person like me who has never known to be patient. But over the years, you know, people would ask me, what sustains you doing this work? And the answer was always the same. It's the wonderful people that I've interacted with day in, day out, year in and year out now for several decades. And it's wonderful that so many of you have taken time out of your Friday evening, even if, like Julia said, it's kind of a foggy night, at least here in Boston, but there are folks in many different states of the country and a couple of foreign countries as well. And people from our community, the folks who live in our housing, leaders in our community, the incredible past and present board and staff members of JPNDC, businesses and professionals who've enriched our work and put their shoulder to the wheel for years and years and years, donors, and especially the fellow travelers in the CDC world, which we sometimes describe as an industry, but I think in our best selves has been and always will be part of a movement. you know, many times over the years, it's amazing how I would look at some of the board members, and some of them were pretty self-deprecating, but it amazed me over the years that sometimes it seemed people got more and more energy, 5, 10, 15, 20 years with us, or leaders in the community, several of whom we saw in that video, who have this never say die spirit, and they have been feeling, and most importantly, acting on their passion for the better part of their lives. It is, I said a while ago when they were interviewing us for the JPNDC website, seeing how people who are volunteering gives so much of themselves, the least we can do is to put in a good, honest day's work. And you know, I think some of that energy and care that people feel is because they are crying out against the injustices of a society that restrains people, and that because of the accident of their birth relegates far too many people to an inferior status, and that creates completely unnecessary material and psychic and spiritual stress on people that should never have to be in a society that's as abundant as ours. But, you know, I think that indignation and sadness, it's real, it's heartfelt, but I also think of all the love and care that animates so much of the work that groups like JPNDC and many others do. I think about the kind of shock of recognition when you've been challenged by somebody and you gain a new insight, and you're learning from people that you never thought you would even come across or spend time with in your life, or to see people who've been told for a long time, well, you don't have the skills, or you're not worth much, to see them tap into the great skills they have and their self-confidence, and to see them blossom. And to see people, and I'm so glad that Julia Martin, who you can see I'm not the only one to have a love affair with Julia Martin, but Julia is somebody whose heart seems boundless for the love that she has for her family and for our community. And the sense of accomplishment that people have experienced because we worked together, and sometimes we rowed against the stream, but we were rowing together. And because of that work, people scored some amazing victories, things that many of us thought could never happen. So for me, it's really been the opportunity of a lifetime to be part of JPNDC. But it's also time, you know, I always say with this work, there's several lifetimes worth of labor in which we're all engaged. And if we've been able to have any chance to be part of bending the moral arc of the universe towards justice, how fortunate we are. But there's a time for new energy and new perspective. And I couldn't be happier that the JPNDC board has hired as our first ever CEO, somebody who I have worked with and admired and grown to love over the last 14 years. And I'm so happy to pass the baton to you, to Rhonda Ellis.
Thank you. Well, that's a tough act to follow. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for being here with us on a Friday night, on a foggy Friday night. You know, rainy nights and rainy days are some of my favorites because they're time for reflection and time for being at home. And that for the last 14 years, I've really found the JPNDC to be my home. You know, this is a community, and I think you're going to hear that and have heard it kind of already this night, this evening, but I just want to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a native Bostonian. There aren't a lot of us left around town. Richard always kids me that I'm one of the few. I'm in the minority in that sense. The work that we do at the JPNDC is personal, and I think you're hearing that tonight. And one of the things that I want to share with you about myself is that, you know, we find this personal because we believe in the power of equity and the power of healing community within community. And so I just want to kind of share a little bit about that story that brought me here. You know, I would often come home as a young child and find flyers, and I would get upset with my mother because at an early age, I really learned as a child that those flyers were about kind of work. There was always a flyer. You know, I would say to my mom, oh, you know, I'm not really feeling comfortable about math or whatever it might have been, and there was a flyer. One of the early flyers was, for herself. It was, she was an art student at Mass College of Art, and, I was a young mouth to feed, and she was a single mom, and, there needed to be a pathway, and she happened to find a flyer at the YW, I think, as we were coming out of a swimming lesson one day. And it was for, women in the building trades. The Carpenters Union was looking for, at the time, women to join the union. And that flyer meant that I was going to miss my mom as a latchkey kid, miss her on weekends and a few nights a week. But what it did was give us an opportunity for her to find solid employment. Okay, so our community is about healing community from within community at the JPNDC. And, there are multiple stories about those flyers, but the point is that tonight we're looking for you to pick up the JPNDC flyer, okay? And we want to hear from you as members of the community, but also as members of this mission and this movement to really narrow this gap of economic divide. We all know what it is. We all know what it is, so we should just name it tonight. It is systematic oppression. And that is what we're here to really work towards. We're really working towards building ways for our community members to support their own growth from within. So today we're going to ask you to pick up the JPNDC flyer, like my mom used to pick up all those flyers, and really help us build this Center for Equity and Prosperity in our community. We're ready to expand our work. We know that our housing work has had a huge impact. We know that our economic prosperity programs have had a huge impact. We're here today to ask you to be with us in bringing this mission forward, to deliver on the work and the foundation that Richard has put forth for us. And we're here to do that work with you. So thank you so much.
Wow, what an amazing time, an exciting period of transition and growth for JPNDC. We're excited for all that is ahead through Taranda's leadership and as Richard passes the baton to her. Now, we're just about halfway through tonight's program. Can you believe it? So with your RSVP, when you RSVP'd for this event, you should have received an envelope from JPNDC over the last week. Now go look for it. I'm sure you got it. If it said not to open until October the 16th, and I hope you listened to instructions because here's your opportunity to go find the envelope and come back so we can open it together. I have mine. Okay. Give you all a few seconds because I know some of y'all probably gotta go downstairs. Yep, the envelope looks like this. That's the one. You ready? Okay. Enclosed is a magnet. Now, you're probably still looking for your envelope, but if you found it, you know what you found inside of it. It's a magnet with some of the wonderful faces of the people that JPNDC has served throughout their Economic Prosperity Service Program. As you may have already heard, JPNDC is kicking off a capital campaign to build the Center for Equity and Prosperity. This center will be a welcoming, child-friendly place where thousands of families who are struggling today can build assets and move towards prosperity, making Boston a more equitable city. And we all know we want that. So let's watch this short film together.
According to the Boston branch of the Federal Reserve Bank, the median net worth of white families is about $250,000. For black families, it's $10. And for Dominican families, for example, it's $0.
If you look in Greater Boston, it's not that white households are almost 31,000 times smarter or harder working than African American and Latino households. It's the roulette wheel of birth.
Closing that wealth gap is critically important to stability, and it makes for a better Boston.
One of the things that's neat, I think, about the work that JPNDC does is that we have such a variety of programs from, early education to family financial education, financial coaching, job placement, small business work. And if we can combine those different elements, it's a really powerful combination.
One time I remember I was coming from, I believe, a gig that I did, and I basically saw something flash right in my face, and a thought occurred to me and said to myself, I don't want to go through this no more. I don't want to go through the rest of my life of what I went through, being on the streets.
Cuando llegué a este programa me sentía desorientada, no tenía trabajo, en verdad no sabía cómo empezar en este país donde acababa de llegar junto a mis 3 hijos.
Anteriormente nosotros conocer a JPNDC, nosotros estábamos comenzando con la barbería, teníamos varios años con ella, pero Elvi estaba comenzando.
We are not a prescriptive service. Our starting point is always respecting the individual's values and their goals and what they want for themselves and their families. So we work with people where they are.
En verdad estamos mucho mejor de como cuando llegamos, y gracias a Dios y a este programa ahora mismo estamos trabajando porque sí ya encontré un nuevo lugar donde vivir, que próximamente ya estaremos ahí.
That's the thing that I like about JPNDC, that they've been real cheerful, they've been supportive, they've been motivating me to do what I have to do in order for my life to be better.
En realidad nosotros hemos avanzado bastante. Después de estar en JPNDC, nuestro negocio ha dado un giro de 180 grados después de pertenecer a esta gran familia que es JPNDC.
Over the last few years, our participant numbers have tripled, from serving 250 to more than 850 families per year. We just don't have enough room.
Fortunately, JPNDC owns this historic brewery complex, and it's the perfect future home for the Center for Equity and Prosperity.
It's going to allow us to serve hundreds of more people a year. It's going to deepen both our individual work with people and our ability to work in larger groups. And it's going to provide the kind of high-quality, dignified environment that everybody who walks in our door really deserves.
The Center for Equity and Prosperity will have all services on the first floor, a welcoming reception area and a great play space, larger training rooms, a technology center, and appropriate space to respect people's rights to confidentiality.
The center is going to have a great impact on how far we are able to go in the quality of our programs.
Please join with us to build the Center for Equity and Prosperity and help us to make Boston a more equitable city.
We hope you enjoyed that video, and we hope that you can feel the sense of pride and community that we and the members of our board here at the JPNDC really do pour into the passion. I often call this labor, not work. This is labor. We are working towards building and really deconstructing systems. And with that, I just wanted to share with you, we are really looking at a goal of about $2.5 million to build this center for equity and prosperity. And we are well on our way, as Richard said, but for the donations and the real passion and care and commitment that has come from multiple members of our community and members of our old JPNDC family. And thank you for any of the new participants who are out there who are contributing. We're well on our way. We're almost at about roughly $1 million. We need to get there. So we're really looking forward to you to continue your participation. With that, I just want to say that I really now have the pleasure of introducing a special guest through video, Mayor Martin Walsh.
Hi, I'm Mayor Marty Walsh. Like many families in our city, my parents immigrated to Boston in search of hope and opportunity. They worked hard, they found community in our working class neighborhood in Dorchester, and they were able to build a good life for my brother and me. Even though we faced hard times, our American dream came true. Everyone deserves that opportunity. That's why I went to public service, to make sure that all Boston families have a chance to follow their dreams as part of a supportive community. I'm very proud of how far we've come in making that goal a reality in Boston. And we couldn't do it without the partnership of great community organizations like the JPNDC. JPNDC does incredible work around affordable housing, small business development, financial security, job readiness, and civic engagement. They've been a staple in Boston's community for over 4 decades, and they've contributed to some of Boston's greatest success stories, like the revival of Jamaica Plain in the 70s. Today, their role in our community is more important than ever. The Center for Equity and Prosperity will be a place where more than 1,000 Boston families can build assets and long-term economic mobility each year. It will help lift people up out of poverty and grow the middle class here in Boston. It will help make the Jamaica Plain community stronger and more vibrant than ever. I'm proud to support the Center for Equity and Prosperity, and I thank everyone who does the same.
Okay, so you're probably wondering, who am I? So I can tell you a little bit about myself. Again, I'm Julia Mejia. I am an at-large city councilor here in the city of Boston, and I also happen to be the first Latina, the first Afro-Latina to serve in this capacity. And I am the one vote wonder. Yes, one vote got me here. But before I even got here, it's important for you all to know that I'm the first person in my family to graduate high school and go to college. In fact, my mom did not make it out, not even to the 4th grade, and she and I cleaned offices together when I was a kid. And I wanted a pair of Nikes. Everyone did back in the 80s. And I was 12 years old when I got my first job. I went to an organization that had just moved to my neighborhood, and I said to them, listen, I know everybody around here. Put together a flyer and I'll tell them about your business. I made $26. And since then, I've been working every single day. So you want to talk about economic prosperity. I knew that was what that would look like early on, but I grew up in a life of poverty. And it was those experiences that really helped inform my thinking as I navigated systems that were never intended for me to succeed. Now, as the chair of small businesses for the city of Boston, I've dedicated my entire platform to ensuring that our minority business owners have the tools and the resources that they need to be able to thrive, not to survive, to thrive. And some of the work that we've done since COVID, and I always think that COVID has presented an opportunity for us to be innovative and to think outside the box. So I'll give you a few examples of some of the projects that my office has spearheaded as a result of COVID. We launched an initiative called the Bodega Project so that people can have access to culturally responsive foods right in their neighborhoods. We also created an opportunity for barbers and hair salons, because you know you gotta look cute, but when they closed down, a lot of our barber shops and nail salon and hair salons were not functioning in ways that they should have, so they were not able to take advantage of a lot of the PPE and resources that were available to them. So our office created a 12-hour training designed specifically to help them be COVID ready and help them understand best business practices. But what has been amazing about that is that every single business that we have supported, we've done so in collaboration with JPNDC. It has been through their partnership that we've been able to provide training and technical assistance and support to businesses across the entire city of Boston. And it's through those partnerships that make me incredibly humbled and grateful to be here today as your host. As someone who grew up here in the city of Boston, I understand how important having an economic prosperity center right here, where we could build ourselves, build our community, and in fact, help prevent displacement. Because when people have the tools and the resources and access that they need, then they'll be able to live the lives that we've always envisioned for ourselves. So I'm happy to be here this evening and sharing this platform alongside you all and encourage you to do the same. Thank you so much for joining me here tonight. And I went totally off script, but I'm back. And that is why, this is what I end with, and that is why what JPNDC does is so important. I'm proud to be in alliance with JPNDC and hope you will too, as we work together for a more equitable Boston.
Hi, my name is Carla McPhail. I live in Dorchester. First time to get my own apartment, to get my job, and especially to bring my young son, because he stayed in my country, and I was worried for him because In that moment, my country was had difficult with I don't know, say pandillas, and I was worrying for my son for that. I know I need to learn more English to be can interact with another person, especially in my job, because I have to interact with patients, with my coworkers and supervisors. One of my goals was to get my job. At the first moment, was a part-time. After that, that was for 16 hours, and after that they gave me 20, then 25, and then 30. Now I have full-time, but in the beginning was housekeeper. Now I'm working in as unit associate. It's a good area. I like that because I interact with a lot of pregnant women, and I like that. I feel proud of my goal because I got my job, and that allowed me to be financially independent. One of my goals was to bring my son to Honduras, and now he lives with me. And I feel happy because he's with me now. JPNDC, they never tell me no for answer. When I need them, they never tell me no. Actually, I can say one word. I can say two, the best.
Good evening. My name is Charles Hills, and I have been a member of the board of directors for the JPNDC for over 30 years. In fact, I was sitting at the table in 1977 when we began this organization. I've watched the organization really grow under Richard's leadership, and I hope from some of the things you've seen tonight, you can understand why we hold him in such great esteem. His message and the message of our organization and our work and efforts has always been about social justice, and more pointedly within that, economic justice. We have worked over the years to help people to create for themselves the opportunity for productive, dignified, and creative lives. A lesson that we have learned over the years and work that we will continue in the future. Let me tell you a little bit about my story, because it reflects what the Center for Equity and Prosperity will do for families like mine. I grew up in Boston. I've spent most of my life in Jamaica Plain. I lived in a building down off Lamartine Street that was going to be torn down for the I-95 extension. My mother and I had to move. She wanted to become a homeowner because she had said, after we had lived there for 10 years, all she had to show for all her hard work was a stack of rent slips. So she went to a bank downtown to get a mortgage, and she looked for a home. But the bank wouldn't give her a mortgage. It looked like they were going to shut the door in her face. Wrong neighborhood? Maybe. Not enough income? Probably. She had a steady job, but not long before that, she had been on public assistance when I was a young boy, and she was raising me. But she had a voice, and she persisted. She wrote a letter to the loan officer explaining all the reasons why they should give her a mortgage. She was that way. And she reminded them about the stack of rent slips, which provided nothing for us in the future. She must have been very convincing because the loan officer she told me later, took her letter to the board of the bank and read it to them. And you know, they did. They gave her the mortgage. And the home that she bought is the home I grew up in, and the home in which my wife and I have raised our children. And God willing, they will raise their children there too. That is what the Center for Equity and Prosperity can do for people in this community and in the greater Boston community. The reason that Richard and I have stayed committed to the JPNDC is because of the work that it's done to help hundreds of people to do just that, to find dignity and productivity in their lives. I hope you will join me in support for the center in this important mission for us. As you've heard, our goal is to raise $2.5 million to build the center. And we are just about, we're a little bit more than a third of the way there. But the truth is, and one of the things that I've learned over the years is education, training, commitment, and even more importantly, opportunity are the keys to success anywhere. And the other truth that I learned from my mother's example and from so many others is that nobody ever got anything worthwhile without somebody helping them, without somebody and something helping them and giving them a break. But we all know that. In our hearts, we all know that. Like James Brown said in a song, the Defiant song, I don't want nobody to give me nothing. Just open up the door and I'll get it myself. Help us with the center to open up the door for people like my family through the Center for Equity and Prosperity. In the chat, you will see information about how you can make a gift or a pledge. And you'll also receive that information in a follow-up email. You should also know that gifts and pledges of over $1,000 per year qualify for the Community Investment Tax Credit. And that is a 50% refundable credit, that's a tax term, that you would get on your Massachusetts tax return. But basically, you would get half of the money back. So you see, giving that gift helps us and it helps you too. So please, join me in support for the center, and together we will build a more equitable Boston. Thank you.
Wow. Charles Hills, you know, many times Charlie has many times actually given these passionate orations, and we've often said really rather than having been a CPA, to have been a pastor might have been a more apt profession for Charles. But Charlie has just been such a mainstay of this organization, and we love you, Charles, for all you've done and for your spunk and your spirit. And we had a lot of people in this organization who were with us for 30 and 40 years on different committees and boards, and many of them are still close friends of the families, but quite appropriately, just like it's happening with me, they've aged out. And the one person who's still here is Charlie Hills, and he and I kind of had the most longevity. So I've already told him, Charlie, there's about a 10-year period where you could invent any fiction in the world or say whatever you want to say, because there'll be nobody around who's lived through it, who's still on the board. But thank you, Charles Hills. And I also want to thank you before Taronda takes us home. You know, events like this you all know, many of you have been involved in organizing them. They don't just come together like magic. We've had a capital campaign committee that's now been meeting for almost a year. And for the last 5 or 6 months, several members of that committee and many other friends of our family and dedicated people in the community have been part of the host committee, I guess we call it, for this event. And your support has just been inspiring. But most of all, this event came together, and I hope that you all have found it worthwhile to have spent your Friday, however foggy it was or wasn't, wherever you are, that this event came together the way it did, because we have two amazing people on our fundraising and communications team, and they did a marvelous job. And Randy Sayers, to Randy, we can't thank you enough. And to one of my all-time, to a woman that I think we can say we have had a wonderful and incredibly productive working relationship and had some fun along the way, Sally Swenson. I mean, Sally, thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Thal. Wow. Thank you again. And thank you for the folks at home. We are just getting word that we have received quite a few pledges. And so we really want to thank this community, this live community, for that. We're not here physically all together, but we feel you out there. We see you, we hear you. And like I said earlier, this work is labor, okay? And we are a family, and the JPNDC mission is about the staff and the dedicated principled people that we have. And as you've heard over the course of this evening, you know, lineage is really a word that comes to mind in my for this event and for this organization. This is a multi-generational organization that really is about building community from within. So we thank you all. We thank the board members and staff members who are online, who are, again, you know, multiple nights we spend in this building together, many a night. That is not, you know, that's not a one-time thing, and it's not by accident. We appreciate all the dedication of the staff have given to the community and given to us as partners and colleagues. Thank you for being here tonight with us. We want to see you out in the streets as soon as we can get there. Have a good night.
Thank you.